Good day, everyone. Welcome back. This is Mr. Stitt, and today our video is about how to improve your race paragraph. So if you watched our other video about race paragraphs, you probably have written one already. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about how to improve your race paragraph. And for my class in particular, we just wrote a race paragraph, and there were some really positive things, but there were also some things that weren't done so well. So today I want to talk about how to improve on your race paragraph. First things first, let's review what is a race paragraph. So when you answer an academic question, you have to answer using RACE or some format in RACE. And RACE is just an acronym for restate the question, answer the question, cite evidence to prove your point, and explain how the evidence proves your point. So these four elements need to be in your RACE paragraph or in your academic answer to an academic question in order to score highly. So always remember the acronym RACE if you want to answer your question well for your academic question. Now, I want to get into some of the things that I saw that when we did our first race paragraph that were some major issues with the race paragraphs. Now, I want to start by saying that there were some really wonderful things. For instance, almost everyone did R and A amazingly well. Almost everyone restated the question and answered the question very well. But where we started falling apart was in the C and the E, and then with some of these other things. So let me go through these with you. Number one, we had some poor handwriting. Now, we're middle school students, or if you're watching this video and you might be a high school student or a college student, you got to make sure your handwriting is legible. I mean, I know the handwriting is not everything, but you have got to work harder to make sure that your handwriting is legible. Because say, for instance, you wrote an amazing paragraph, but nobody can read it. That is on you. You have got to make sure you slow down and use good handwriting. Number two, a lot of us did not actually answer the question that was being asked. So sometimes this happens if we're in such a hurry that we go ahead and start writing without actually properly planning or thinking about the question. Sometimes these academic questions can be very broad and very big questions, so you got to make sure you slow down and know exactly what question you're answering so that you don't get off track in your answer. Number three, not citing evidence correctly or not using evidence at all. Now this is a problem because if you don't cite evidence correctly, you fall into the trap of plagiarism. So you want to make sure you give credit where credit is due, cite the page number and the author name, or at least cite the page number from the text that you're referencing so that you can give credit to that author. Not using evidence at all, what this does is this shows that you did not properly research your answer. So you got to make sure you properly research your answer, okay, and give some evidence to back up your point. Last but not least, not being detailed enough in your explanation or your elaboration. Okay, so this is mainly in your E part of your response. You have to go above and beyond, and you have to explain why your point is important. You can't just restate your R and your A either. You can't just restate the question that you restated and your answer. You have to go into depth. You have to make connections. Why is your answer important? How does it affect the reader? What should we learn from the text? These are the things that you got to go above and beyond. Now, I want you to look at this meme to the right because I think it's an important one. Just because we make mistakes, that doesn't mean we're going to die. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Making mistakes provides us with the next lesson. So today I want you to be encouraged. Just because we made a few mistakes, I want us to realize that it's not the end of the world. We are going to get back and we are going to do even better on our next race. So let's get into it. I want to show you some good examples and some bad examples of race paragraphs from this week. Now, first of all, I want to show you a poor example. Now, this was from one of my 6th grade classes, and by poor example, I mean it scored a 70 or lower, so 70 out of 100 or lower. And we read the story, The Ravine, and I asked my students to write what was the theme of the ravine and how do you know? So the question there is, what is the theme of the story, The Ravine? How does the author develop this theme in the story? Use a well-written race paragraph to answer your question. Here is what the student wrote. The theme of The Ravine is that people can always change. The author developed the theme because Vinny at first was scared, but then he saw his friends being brave, so he became brave. So, if you don't be brave, you can't do the things you want to do, or someone will get the best of you. So, not a terrible response. This actually scored a 70 out of 100, but here's what it's missing. It's missing the citing of evidence. All this person did was summarize something that happened in the story. Now, a summary is not citing evidence. A summary is just telling events that happen in the story, but when you're writing your race paragraph, you need to cite specific evidence. So you either need to give a direct quote, or you need to give some sort of page number or much more specific example than just Vinny at first was scared, but then he saw his friends being brave and he became brave. So my question is, What did he see that made him become brave? What did his friends do that finally changed in him? Why did he change? So this person did not really go above and beyond with citing evidence. So that's one thing that we got to do better on, cite specific evidence. Let me show you another example. So same type of question, but this was for my 7th graders. We read a story called Rogue Wave, and I asked them, what is the theme of the story Rogue Wave, and how does the author develop this in the story? Here's what the student wrote. The theme of Rogue Wave is to never give up and always be resilient. I think this because Sully never gives up on Scoot, even after not hearing her for hours. In the end, Scoot escapes after being resilient and trying multiple escape routes. This shows the theme of resilience. So this is not a bad response either, but the thing that's making it score lower, again, is that citing specific evidence. You have got to come in and give me specific examples. So what do you mean Sully never gives up on Scoot? Where does it say that in the story? What page? How does he never give up on Scoot? What specifically does he do to try to encourage her to get out of the ship? Again, in the end, Scoot escapes after being resilient and trying multiple escape routes. Tell me specifically, what escape routes did she try? What page number did you find that on? Did she try one way? Did she fail? If she failed, how did she feel? How did she overcome that? So, you got to give me more specific evidence. Next, their explain, all they say is this shows the theme of resilience. How does it show resilience? You got to add detail. You got to be more specific. Does it show resilience in the way Scoot acted? Does it show resilience in the way Sully acted? What specifically about their action shows resilience? So, not a terrible answer. This again scored a 70 out of 100, but it's not specific enough. Now, let me move on to some really, really key, excellent examples. This one is for The Ravine. This person said, in the story The Ravine, the theme is, you can be brave enough to do anything you believe in. I think this is the theme because Vinny, the main character, is trying to find a dead body that him and his friends are curious to know about. As they walk to the waterfall where the boy died, Vinny starts to get a little nervous and already wants to head back home. But he can't. His friends will make fun of him, so he keeps going. All his friends jumped as well, but when it was Vinny's turn, he knew that this was too dangerous. Something was telling him not to do it, but he called it peace. You can be brave. But brave doesn't have to mean making bad decisions. Okay, so you can see in this example right away, they cited some evidence. They cited much more specific evidence. Now, could they have given me page numbers? Absolutely. That would have made them score even higher. They would have told me on what page did Vinny get a little bit nervous. On what page did it say they walked to the waterfall to find the boy's body. But they did give me more specific examples. His friends were going to make fun of him. What page did that happen on? They could have given me more specific examples, but they did tell me that in the end, what happened to Vinny? He became more at peace. So the theme was you can be brave enough to do anything you believe in. They do kind of show this through Vinny's actions. Now, this scored about a 90, so they were missing some key details, but still, they were very, very specific in their evidence. Last but not least, I want to show you a really awesome example. This scored a 100. This was from my 7th grade classes, and they said the theme of the story, Rogue Wave, is that you should never give up on something or someone that you love. So that's a very, very specific answer to the question. They didn't just say it's about love. They said something or someone that you love, never giving up on them. Evidence to prove this is when Sully was trying to get Scoot free, but he couldn't, and he didn't know if she was alive. He kept on trying to reach Scoot until she heard him, and she tapped back, pages 3 through 4. So, again, this is what's great. This is why they got 100. They cited their evidence, and they gave very specific evidence to prove their point. Last but not least, this theme is important because if Sully and Scoot would have given up, neither of them would have made it out of this situation alive. Okay, so here's what they did well. They tied it back to their original answer to the question, never giving up on someone or something you love, but they take it a step further and they say how their resilience, their ability to never give up, helped them both survive. So they made a connection beyond the theme. So this is an excellent example. You see the R, the A, the C, and the E. This is what I'm looking for. Even though this is short, this isn't a very long answer. There were some people who had even longer answers, but this is a short and sweet answer. They cite the page evidence. They explain beyond the theme. They restated the question. They answer the question. This is an excellent race paragraph. Okay, so 4 ways to make your explanation elaborations better. This is where we mainly struggled. So on your paper, if Mr. Stitz says you need more detail in your C and E, you need more detail in your citing evidence or your explain, elaborate, this is where we really struggled, okay? At the very end of your paragraph, you have to go above and beyond and not just state what you've already stated before. So you shouldn't just restate your answer again. You need to go above and beyond and explain why is your answer important. Why is the evidence that you found important? So here are 4 ways that you could do that really, really well. Number 1, apply something to real life. Say something like, this theme is important because it teaches us real life lessons such as, or you could say, based on this lesson, the real life lesson that we can apply is. Okay, so you're taking what you learned in the story and you're applying it to real human life. That's a great way to explain or elaborate. What about number 2? What if you made a prediction about the future? This theme can help us in the future because, based on this lesson, the author is trying to help us in our future by. So make a prediction. Take something that you learned from the story, make a prediction about the future, or what can you apply into the future. Number 3, make a connection to something else. This theme is similar to the story blank because, what if you took the story The Ravine or the Rogue Wave that we read last week, and what if you applied it to something else? What if you applied it to a story that you've read in another class or a life experience that you've had outside of the story? Connect it to something else. That's a great way to explain or elaborate. Last but not least, number 4, this is a great one. Make a judgment or an evaluation. How did the author do? So you could say something like, overall, the theme of the story was taught well or poorly by the author because. You can judge the author. You can be judgmental here. Once you tell me what the theme of the story is, did he do it well or did he do it poorly? You could also say what the author could have done better with this theme is. So maybe the author taught the theme, but they didn't teach it as clearly as they could have. Could you explain or elaborate that further? Absolutely. What could they have done better? So these are 4 ways that you could make your explanations or elaborations slightly better and then score higher on your raised paragraph responses. Okay, last but not least, I just want to give you 4 more tips, okay? And I want you to look at this picture. Big dreams start with baby steps. So just like that kitty cat photo, just because we made a few mistakes and just because our grade was a little bit lower than maybe you wanted to, take this as a learning example. Realize that you are learning, and learning is hard, and learning takes time, and it's a process. So big dreams or big grades on an assignment, they start with baby steps. So make sure you do these 4 baby steps to ensure that you're going to score well on your next raised paragraph. Number 1, slow down for neat handwriting. Make sure that your answer isn't disqualified because the teacher can't read it. Okay. Number 2, reread the prompt several times to make sure that you are answering the question being asked. You don't want to go off on some tangent and do this amazing paragraph, but it's not on the topic that the teacher asked. So don't disqualify yourself because you didn't read the question well. Number 3, cite evidence correctly. Be sure to use page numbers and or direct quotations. That means you pull words directly from the story and put quotation marks around them. Or if you're going to summarize something from the story, you need to put page numbers. Where did you find that information? Last but not least, be detailed and specific and meaningful in your explanations and elaborations. Don't just say, this is important because I think it's important. At the end of your response, don't just say, all of this is important and we should learn a great lesson from it. That is not specific enough. You're not going to score well if you are lazy in that way and you don't give specific and meaningful explanations. You got to go above and beyond. Use those 4 strategies that I taught you on the previous slide and you will crush your next raised paragraph. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Please go back and watch this video as many times as you need to make sure your next raised paragraph is an amazing one. Thanks.